In today's session, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover these four topics: typography, style guide, UX laws, and creating wireframes. And after the break, I'm going to give you guidelines for your capstone project, the project that you have to submit next week. So after the break, we are going to go through it, and I will give you quick example of how we can approach a UX project and how you can do this project as well. So let's start off with typography today. In the meantime, if you have any questions regarding previous sessions, you can send a message or ask now. All right. So we discussed about dark mode as well last week. So let's talk about typography. What is typography? Typography is a design discipline that involves the use of typefaces and organization of those typefaces to create readable, usable, and ideally user-friendly interfaces or experiences. Typeface, also known as a font family, the word typeface comes from physical print and refers to the faces of physical letter blocks. A typeface is composed of fonts. Okay, typography is also really important aspect in UX. So especially when you do designs for mobile screens or the desktops, the typography can give the message that you want to give. For an example, let's say you want to develop an application for the companies or professional sector. So the typefaces that you have to select in that particular scenario is different. You have to convey the message. You have to select some professional text. Whereas when you try to create an application for the kids or some learning students, the typography that you have to select is different. So especially for kids, you might have to select some playful fonts to get their attention. And for the study purposes, you might have to select a more readable font because there can be so many readable content. So you have to consider all this when you selecting a typeface or a typography on your designs. One story I can tell you, when Apple and Macintosh launched their first operating system back in 80s, Macintosh from the first go, they had good typography. If you listen to Stanford lecture that Jobs given, he mentioned how he learned about typography, how he applied what he learned during the first invention of Apple Macintosh computer and so on. So if you consider those factors, that is one of the main selling points of Apple during those days. Even now, when you compare many other operating systems, especially Android or uh, Windows, Apple have good UI, especially good typography when comparing to other things. So when you launching a product, you have to select a good typography, good font faces to catch or match your audience requirements. All right, these are some of the widely used font faces that exist. So I think most of you are already familiar with all of these. These are available in uh, any operating system. I think these are available in Macintosh or even Windows computers. So these are some of those widely used fonts. I got this one from Interaction Design Foundation. Uh, the These are the widely used fonts in industry. All right. So we talked about typography and typeface and then font. So let's go to number one font source that you can get fonts from. So Google Fonts is number one because it is open source and free, and you can download or you can even call their fonts using their content delivery network and use it in your website. If you go to Figma, actually, they have already implemented all of these fonts, all of these Google fonts. So you don't have to install them manually. Uh, Almost all of these Google fonts are installed in Figma. All right. So if I go here, let's look for a font. They have different sectors for fonts and auto and even icons and knowledge as well. So we are going to go to the fonts section, and I'm going to select one font face from here. Let's select this one, Enter. So this is the typeface, and inside the typeface we have fonts. So these are fonts. Uh, those fonts have different categories. Thin 100 is the thickest, uh, with the less thickness, and the black 900 is the most thickness one. So you can type one paragraph here and see how it will look like in your designs as well. So you can use Google font whenever you do the design. So actually you don't have to download the font because Figma is already implementing that Google fonts in their system. But let's say you want to install a font like a custom font. So another tool is Adobe Typekit. So in Typekit, most of the fonts are not available freely. So you have to pay and get the license and then download it. So these are some designer fonts that you can use in your websites. And another website that you can download fonts freely is this one, the font. So let's say you want to download one font from here and use it in your Figma design. So what you can do is you can first download the font and install it in your system. And you need to have a Figma application downloaded to your computer. You can't install a font in web version. So if you have the downloaded version of Figma, after you install the font, if you restart your Figma application, it will show up in your font list right here. So that is how you can install a font. All right. So let's go back to our presentation. Okay, fonts are specific weights within the typeface. You choose a typeface, you use a font. If you were select Georgia as your typeface, then Georgia bold, italic, and regular would be your fonts. So I have selected Inter as my typeface. So thin 100, extra light 200, regular 400, and all these are my fonts. Character is an individual element, most commonly a single letter, number, or a punctuation mark. So inside our fonts, we have characters. So any of these can be a character. So it can be a letter, number, or a punctuation mark, symbol, or anything. So we call them alphanumeric. So it can be one of those. We call them a character, the single element. Weight, height, and size. This refers to the thickness, length, and overall size of a typeface. You can experiment with different weights and sizes and use the variations judiciously on your type interface to break the monotony on a long passages of text or to direct attention to a specific elements. So in here, let's say this is my card. So let's say I want to create some hierarchy between texts. So what I can do is I can add a heading right here. That is the first thing I can do. So let's add a heading. My heading, I will just call it a heading. And we can change the thickness of this text and maybe the size. So that will give users their freedom to read it clearly, so they can quickly distinguish between the what is the paragraph and what is the heading, and they can uh, give their attention to the main parts of the screen. So that is how you can maintain the readability as well. And in the paragraph itself, we can change the text, like we can bold some text, or we can italic some of these. So you can play around and make it more readable for your users. Because if you put so many text in the screen for an, let's say in Figma, it is not that readable. Especially most of the users have very less attention span nowadays. So they don't read your full content. So in that particular cases, what you can do is you can highlight the certain parts that that you want their attention to be, and maybe italic or some other, you can use some other decoration to get their attention to your text content that you think that they should read before proceeding to your application. Okay, next we have letter spacing or tracking, the distance between the widest point of each character. Tracking specifically refers to uniform increase or decrease in horizontal space between characters. So if I show it here in this paragraph, so this is tracking or letter spacing. So it will increase the spacing between letters. So always make sure to keep it 0. That is the default value on Figma. In particular cases that you select a typeface that uh, characters are too close to each other, you can use this one to increase the readability. Or maybe for a logo, if you want your fonts to be spread out, you can use this particular function to make it happen. Next one is alignment. Alignment refers to how text is positioned. There are 4 main alignments: left, right, centered, and justified. So I think you're already familiar with this. Even in word processor, they have these alignments. So in Figma, also we have left align, center align, right align. If you go inside this, and there's a justified as well. So those are the 4 main alignments in Figma itself. All right, any questions so far? Okay, now we have some typography principles that you should consider and follow as good practices when you do your designs. Okay, number 1 is keep the number of fonts used at a minimum. Using more than 3 fonts make a website look unstructured and unprofessional. Keep in mind that too many type sizes and styles at once can also wreck any layout. So let's say you try to design a website for a social media application or something like that, and you decide to come up with 3 or 4 different fonts, one for heading, another one for paragraph, another one for call to action buttons, and so on. So that is not a good practice. Always try to make sure you use a minimum, like maximum 3 fonts, 3 typefaces. So let's say for an example, most of the time when I do a design, I try to use a maximum 2 typefaces. One for headings. This is I'm talking about website design. In mobile application design, it is a good practice to use only one typeface. I will tell you the reasons. So if you use too many typefaces, let's say you have to load all these typefaces to your website as well. So that will decrease your website speed, because we have to send 3 separate requests or number of requests based on the typefaces you selected to the server. And server responding times can be varied based on the typeface URL that you are selected. Even if you, what we do is, if we don't have those fonts on Google or anywhere, most of the websites, they try to self-host these fonts. So that is also another thing that you have to consider. If you into coding, if you into front-end development, uh, in case if there's not any necessary requirement, if you can't find the font or anything, you can self-host your font in your server. But otherwise, always try to make Google font, use Google Fonts. So in that way, it will load your fonts quickly, and it will available every time as well. But always make sure to use maximum of 2-3 fonts. Otherwise, in design wise, it is not matching, because you have to match 3-4 different fonts in your designs. And also in a speed wise, it is not a good practice as well. So always make sure to uh, not use too many fonts, too many type sizes and styles also in your design, because it will distract your users. It will decrease the usability and readability of your content as well. Okay, next one is try to use standard fonts. Font embedding services like Google Fonts or Typekit have a lot of interesting fonts that can give your design something new, fresh and unexpected. So what can go wrong? So always make sure to use these font embedding services. They use content delivery network, which is called CDN. So it will uh, give your fonts like uh, you can connect to those servers quickly rather than self-hosting your fonts. So always make sure to use Google Fonts. On specific case, you can use Typekit fonts as well. The next one, actually, this approach has one serious problem. Interesting fonts can distract users from reading. Users can spend time thinking about the fonts that designers use rather than reading the text. So make sure to read, use a readable font. So if you use some decorative or uh, some other fonts that don't do the job that it's supposed to do, if it is a text-rich website that you want your readers to uh, users to read your content, always make sure to use less decorative, readable text. So it will give the users will give their attention to reading that rather than text itself. Otherwise, they will try to look at the typography and not to read it. Okay. Number one is keep the number of fonts to the minimum. Number two is try to use standard fonts. Number three, limit line length. Having the right amount of characters on each line is key to the readability of your text. It shouldn't be your design that dictates the width of your text. It should also be a matter of legibility. So let's say you have this kind of a paragraph. I will create a new paragraph right here. Okay, this is my paragraph. So if you put your text all the way from your one side of your screens to the other side of the screen, it is not that user friendly. It is not readable when comparing to a text that only spreading uh, certain characters in one line. So I will tell you, you should have around 60 characters per line if you want a good reading experience. Having the right amount of characters on each line is key to the readability of your text. So let's say you don't have this kind of a layout and you have the text all spreading all the way from your left hand side of your screen to the right hand side. So users try to read this text, they uh, find it difficult when comparing to less amount of words. So especially as humans, we have very limited memory. So we can only remember up to 6, 7 words per uh, in our cognitive memory. So that is the idea behind that. So if you give them like your content in chunks, they will be able to remember. They can remember what they read already. So they don't have to go back and try to read it again when they read the next sentence or the paragraph. So make sure to use that in your designs as well. In here, I have demonstrated what is the ideal range. So this is too narrow. Below 40 is too narrow. So you are not using your screen well. So because especially in desktop and mobile devices, we have very limited white space, very limited screen size. So if you don't use your screen size wisely, you won't be able to put all the other necessary things. Let's say you are creating a website with images and text and buttons and everything. So if you waste your space like this, you don't have space to put other things in your screen. So 40, below 40 is too narrow. So this is too wide. Uh, Something around 90 is too wide. Something around 40 and 60 is the ideal range. So you can see even by looking at these screens, the first one is readable, but it is not using the white space or the screen size wisely. Last one is too wide. It is hard to read as well. This is the ideal range. So always make sure to uh, keep your text in this ideal range, 40 to 60 characters per line. It is different from mobile devices. You should go for 30 to 40 characters per line. So when your mobile device is on portrait mode, you have to make sure that you only use 30 to 40 characters per line. Below is an example of two sites weaved on a mobile device. The first one uses 50 to 75 characters per line, optimum number of characters per line for print and desktop, while the second one uses 30 to 40 characters. So in here, this is the uh, mobile version, even though it is not optimized for mobile. This one is the mobile optimized website which only uses 30 to 40 characters per line. So this is very readable when comparing to this one. Okay, choose a typeface that works well in various sizes. Users will access your site from devices with different screen sizes and resolutions. Most user interfaces require text elements of various sizes. Button copy, field labels, selection, section headers, etc. So when you try to find a typeface, always make sure to select a typeface that work well in different screen sizes as well. Let's say you select a typeface when it is in uh, mobile, it is displaying quite well. But when it comes to larger screen sizes, smart TV or any screen sizes, it is not that good. It is not readable. So always make sure to test your text element, paragraphs, buttons, or anything before you launch it to the market or before you uh, finalize your designs. So as a designers, you have to consider that there are a number of devices out there. They can be mobile phones, they can be tablets, desktops, larger screen sizes, even televisions or wide screens. So you have to consider your use case and what are the what are the devices that most of the users will use our application or browse our website. So consider all these and select a font face based on that. It is important to choose a typeface that works well in multiple sizes and weights to maintain readability and usability in every size. Okay, so let's say you have a typeface in your mobile and you did a mobile first design. So that means you designed your mobile version, website's mobile version first. So after that, when you try to uh, change your design for the desktop, you find out that your typeface that you have selected is not that good when it is in larger size. And we don't uh, have any experience in designing for the TV or large screen just yet. So what you can do is then select a font that works well in desktop, and maybe there are some you can have a monitor or something, some larger screen, and test the font that you selected one character by character. Is it readable? And then try to make sure it is readable in larger size screens as well. So that is how we uh, generate and select typeface based on the requirement. So if it is only for the mobile device, it is only mobile application, it is okay. But if it is going to be on different screen sizes, you have to consider all these and you have to uh, resize it and see if it is readable in larger sizes as well. Okay, these are some font sizes. So if I go to our Google Classroom, Okay, right here. So in here, I have added some extra resources as well. So if I open here, we have typescale.com. So in Typescale, what you can do is if you select a font, let's select one typeface from here. So I'm going to select Poppins as my typeface. So it will give you, if you select a base size, body size, let's select 14 as my body size for the font in pixels. It will give you all other text sizes, hierarchy of text sizes comparing to my base size. So this is one REM, and if I put pixels here, this is 14 pixels, and it will give you text sizes all the way up to heading 1 and even smaller sizes as well. And it also give you a preview of how it will look like in different device sizes as well. So that is a good tool that you can play around and select a font based on your website's requirement. Even in Google, you can type whatever the paragraph or the message or the text that you want and see how it will look like in different scenarios. Even here, you can see how it will look like in your designs. So always make sure before you select a font in your design, like try to use it in different areas. If your website has headings, try to create a heading with a bold text and see, is it looking good in my website? So do I have to select another font that look better? So those are the questions that you should ask when you selecting a font. Avoid all caps. All caps text, meaning text with the all letters capitalized, is fine in contexts that don't involve reading, such as acronyms or logos. But when your message involves reading, don't force your users to read all caps text. So this text, when comparing to this one with the sentence case or lowercase letters, is very hard to read because you have to give individual attention to each of these characters. But in here, when we have all lowercase or a sentence case, it is, you don't have to pay much attention. You can read it automatically. So make sure to give your users the same features when you launch in your application. Don't try to use all caps if it is not a logo or if it is not acronym. If it is a paragraph or readable content, always use sentence case or a paragraph case, lowercase. All capital print greatly retards the speed of scanning and reading in comparison with lowercase type. So as I mentioned. Okay, next one is don't minimize spacing between lines. In typography, we have a special term for the spacing between two lines of text, leading or line height. So in Figma, you can increase line height by increasing this. So make sure if it is ideal, uh, Figma gives the value as auto. So if you, in specific cases, if you want more padding, you can give it a value. So let's give it something around 30. It will increase the readability, but you have to sacrifice your screen size, the white space. So that is not a good thing because when we have very limited space to deal with. So always make sure to have this as auto, and in any specific cases, if you really need to increase the line height, you can do so by increasing this value. Okay, by increasing the leading, you increase the vertical white space between lines of text, generally improving readability in exchange of screen real estate, as I mentioned. As a rule, leading should be about 30% more than the character height for good readability. So if you count it clearly, so this character height, if this character height is 1, and then you have to have leading at least around 30. So that is the ideal range for good readability. So you don't have to calculate that. Figma is giving an option. If you give it as auto, it will automatically adjust to the ideal range for the line height. Okay, this one is good, and this is too much. We are wasting our screen size and white space, and this is too tight. It is not that readable. So always make sure to use auto as your line height parameter and use this kind of a readable text, something in between too tight and too much. Properly using white space between paragraphs has been proven to increase comprehension up to 20%, as pointed out by Dimitri Fedio. So if you use your white space properly, if it is a readable, if it is a text-rich website, if you use your white space properly, it will increase the readability and the comprehension. And if you use too tight text, it is not doing the same thing. The skill of using whitespace lies in providing your users with a digestible amount of content, then stripping away extraneous details. So when your users reading whatever the content you have in your website, they have a very limited memory. Our cognitive memory can only memorize up to 7 to 8, 6 to 7 words per one go. So make sure to give your information in chunks. So that is what we are doing here. This is good, but this is taking too much space vertically. So in here, you can clearly see this right-hand side design is very readable when comparing to this one. We can easily distinguish between the heading and the subheading, and even this description, and also the paragraphs have a good white space between those each of these elements. All right. Next one is make sure you have sufficient color contrast. So let's say you selected the typeface and you consider the readability and everything, and then you have to put that in your designs. So these are the things that you consider when you are designing with the selected typeface. These lines of text do not meet the color contrast ratio recommendations and are difficult to read against their background colors. You can clearly see the white color background with lighter gray text is not readable. And even for this dark theme, dark color text, but lighter gray text on that foreground, it is also not readable. So it don't have contrast ratio recommendation. It is not following that. So that is why those are not readable. When comparing to this one, these are very much readable. So they are using light color background and darker gray version of the text. And down here, black color background, and on that lighter gray. So it is very readable. These lines of text meet the contrast ratio recommendations and are easy to read against their background colors. So make sure you select the right typeface and make sure to maintain the contrast ratio in order for your users to read it clearly without an issue. So these are some tools that you can use to uh, create, like select fonts for your product. You can select by entering whatever the praise you like, and they will give you font recommendation based on your keyword. And you can go to websites such as, let's say, Dribble, and inside Dribble, let's search for something like this. Okay, you came across this kind of a website, this kind of a design, and you don't know what is the font face that they are using. So one thing you can do is, can take a screenshot. So I'm going to take a screenshot of these text that I want to identify what font they are using, and I have it in my desktop. So go to websites like you can Google the term find font from image. So you can upload that image here and try to find out what is the font that they are using. Let's upload that image right here. If you click on identify, it will give you the results that familiar to that particular text. So if you don't have a Google version, if you don't remember anything in Google that what this font is, you can use this tool to identify what are the fonts that different websites are using. And maybe you can download this font if it is free, or even you can buy the license and use it in your designs as well. So that is how we identify different fonts. Another thing that you can do is if it is a already published website, let's say I'm going to this website right here. So I want to identify what are the fonts this website is using. So what we can do is we can click on the font that we want to identify, right click on it and go to inspect. And in here, we have the typography they have added. Right here, we have the font family. So you can use this font family, and on Google, you can search for it. And if it is available, it will show up. So that is how you identify different fonts if you want to have the same font on your designs. All right, so that is all for the typography. Do you have any questions? Okay, next thing that we're going to discuss is branding guidelines and style guide. So those are two different things. Branding guidelines are clearly defined rules. Branding guidelines are clearly defined rules and standards that communicate how your brand should be represented to the world. Branding guidelines help businesses ensure consistency and demonstrate what the company is, what it does, and what it stands for. Think of it like a brand rulebook that centralizes the overall look and feel of your brand identity. Okay, so branding guideline is a document. So if I go to Google and search for Apple branding guidelines, some of these companies maintain separate websites to give their branding guideline, and some of them only have PDFs. So if I go in here, they will tell you what are the minimum sizes. So I will show you examples. So these are the logos that resellers can use. And this is how they can use them in their websites or whatever. And these are the things that they should do and they should not do. They can't use it in this color. And this is the minimum size for their logo and minimum padding and the minimum width and height in pixels. They have given all this information. And the typography, what are the typography that they can use in the website or advertisements for the resellers. So all these information are there. So whenever a branding company or any other company that associated with Apple products try to advertise or show it in their printed advertisements or even a digital advertisements, they have to follow all these guidelines that Apple have given. Otherwise, uh, it is not a good practice, and also they can take legal actions as well. So we can use this as a blueprint uh, and give it to the different users, like our vendors, to do their designs accordingly. So if I open another brand, so this is branding guideline for Coca-Cola Foundation. So this is the primary logo, secondary logo, and how it will look like if the background is darker. And this is the color palette. And also these are the colors that they use in the color bar, hex codes and everything. And these are some don't do's with the colors. And these are the typefaces that they are using. And this is don'ts with the logo. So you don't, uh, they mention that don't do these changes to our logo and only use our logo in this particular way. And these are the colors and everything. So you can easily send this to whoever that trying to use your logo. For an example, let's say you have a company and you decided to create a logo and a branding guideline, and then uh, suddenly you stop working there and you went to somewhere else. But the next designer and the whole company can follow the same documentation, the branding guideline documentation, and maintain the consistency even if you're not there. And similar case, if you try to outsource your marketing or advertising, social media advertising, you can send this document to those social media managers or advertising company and ask them to maintain the same guidelines that given by the initial designer. So that will increase the uh, like consistency of your brand. Because otherwise, let's say you don't have this kind of a documentation, and first designer designed the logo and they don't have uh, the vector version or anything. So another designer have to create the logo again. And the social media manager might use logo in different places with different colors, with different typefaces. So that is lack of consistency, which will negatively affect your brand as well. So always make sure as a designers, if you get a project to do a branding, starting from the logo, typeface and everything, make sure to create this kind of a document and send it to your users or the client so they can follow this documentation and send it to other people that involving in the uh, company's designs. Branding guidelines are clearly defined rules and standards that communicate how your brand should be represented to the world. Brand guidelines help businesses ensure consistency and demonstrate what the company is, what it does, and what it stands for. Think of like a brand rule book. Okay, we already discussed that part. The style guide is a document that UX designer creates to document a growing and ever evolving set of design guidelines that arise from the design process. So style guide is something different. Style guide is actually useful for the UX designer or a designing team. So when we start designing a website or a mobile application, uh, the designs can be changed. So when we do the design for initially, when we send it to feedback, they will give different feedback. So we have to change our design accordingly to maintain a consistent design throughout. So I will give you an example of a style guide. It's fun. We can call it a design system as well. Uh, So this is actually for the designers usage. So I have created all the basic elements which I call atoms in here. So all the icons that use in the website and even the pop-ups and even the logos of different cryptocurrencies and everything is listed here. So even if I'm not there, if there's anyone else in my team try to create different version of the layout, they can use these basic elements and create whatever the UI they require. So after I create these basic elements, what I do is I create molecules, which are the next elements. So this credit card is using those basic atoms to create this kind of a graphic, and even this uh, credit card set, and even these uh, text lines and everything is consist of these atoms. And finally, after we finalize all these things, atoms and molecules, we can create our final product. So this is the final design we came up with for this company. So it consists of these molecules and atoms. So whenever I want to do a change in my design, I don't have to do it right here. So let's say I want to change the uh, change this particular card. So what I can do is I can go to my molecules section and uh, change my cards. So let's see what is the card that I'm using there. Wallet card. So I can make changes to my wallet card. So it will change all the instances of that particular card without me. Otherwise, I have to change all the instances myself. I have to go manually and change the colors and change the design of each of these. But with this kind of a system, I only have to change it in one place, and it will change in all the other instances accordingly. So always make sure to create a style guide or a design system when you are designing, especially a large scale project. Even if it is a small scale project, it is beneficial for you because there are so many changes. So when you try to do changes, you can only do changes in the basic level. So it will change all the instances accordingly. Okay, style guide is a document that UX designer creates to document a growing and ever evolving set of design guidelines that arise from design process. So how to create this kind of a style guide or a uh, design is I already told you how to create a component set. So this is how we create a component set. So this is a card component. And last week we created a button component, this one. And there can be a logo as well. So these are the components that I already created. So basic components, the button, and then this menu items, and even the logo and everything. You can create those very basic elements and keep it in your library under the atoms section. And then by using these things, this you can create this navigation bar, which is, we can call it a molecule because it consists of these atoms, three uh, basic elements. And after you create that, you can finally create the whole design, whole page. So I call it species. That is actually following atomic design principles. We categorize them as atoms. Atoms is the very basic ones, and molecules, we use atoms to create molecules, and finally species by using the molecules we created. So I invite you to follow the same design principles. It will be easier for you as well. Okay, these are the uh, components that we created. You can create same kind of a components, and when there are so many like UI interfaces and components, you can maintain it in this kind of a library. So it will be easier for you as a designer, and even your team members, and even for the developers, they can easily get the code from right here from the atoms themselves. So if I select one element from here, let's say this one, so they can see what is the CSS code for this, what is the padding and border I should give. So everything will be there. Okay, now we are talking about why is it important, why is branding guideline and style guide is important for any product. It maintains consistency. As I mentioned, if you don't have this kind of a document, everyone who try to design a new thing, let's say one person is trying to create a flyer that uh, sending through email. So he have to do the designs again. But if you have this kind of a documentation in place, you can follow the guidelines and do the designs consistently. So that will maintain the consistency of the brand. Defining standards and usage. So you can define standards and usage. So as Coca-Cola mentioned here, so these are the standards that they're looking for. These are the logos that they want you to use. These are the colors. These are the standard colors. These are what you should not do. And these are the typefaces. So all the things are there documented. So everyone can follow the guidelines and create a uniform and consistent brand and designs for advertising or anything. It will be easier for the front-end developers to write their CSS and HTML by referencing all the important information and data. Find hex codes and colors easily. Reuse UI components, SVG files, and quickly find and extract any other assets that may require. So if I have this kind of a layout, let's say my developer, when I send this to him, want to create a button. So these are the main buttons we have. So these are the all the colors, and this is the padding. So if I select a single element, it will give me the width and height and the padding, how I justify the content and the border radius and the background, and everything is there. And also the selection colors. My button color is, if it is blue color, it will give those colors. So what he can do is he can create a color library separately and use that color library throughout the system. So they have to change the colors and the button sizes uh, one by one. They can create one button component and use it everywhere. So those are reusable components, which is really important in development as well. So it will save time and it will maintain consistency when considering development using this kind of a branding guideline or a style guide. And if they want to export some logo or whatever as a SVG or anything, what they can do is they can go here and export, and they can select their extension that they need their export to be and export it directly to whatever the folder that they like. So that is another advantage of having a branding guideline or a style guide. And it will also help the UX designers to craft responsive layouts that fit the brand style. So if you have all these elements in place, you can drag them and create layouts for different device sizes as well, mobile or even desktop or whatever. So they can use different size of logos to create this kind of a design. The social media managers can consult the document to use the same exact typeface, color palette, and graphic assets to create a consistent social media feed. So most of the companies, they outsource the social media marketing uh, area. So if you don't have this kind of a document, you may have to give feedback to every design that they do. And even you do so, they will still uh, don't maintain that consistency. So if you have this kind of a document, it will be easier for your users, as well as it will give you good consistency throughout your designs. Okay. Now we have some UX laws. Do you have any questions so far? Please give me 1 minute. All right, UX laws. The collection of laws or design standards that designers must take into account when thinking and improving the user experience. There are many UX laws. These are the basic laws that you should follow when you do your designs. So if you Google UX laws, there can be many. They adding to the list in daily basis as well, some of these laws based on the UX trends that following in certain time period. But these are the very basic ones that every designer should know when they do their designs. Number one is Hicks law. Hicks law states that users spend more time making a decision based on the number and complexity of the choices. So it basically say the more choices that you give to your users, more time they will spend on your design to make a decision. So less choices are good. The more choices you present your users with, the longer it will take them to reach a decision. So example for this is, let's say you have a ride sharing application. And then let's compare Picme and Uber. In Picme itself, they have so many options. They have options to book a ride, and then they have option to book some other vehicles, lorries, and so on in different category. And they have marketplace and also food and everything in one particular application itself. And in Uber, they only have ride and Uber Eats. In Uber Eats also, they don't have much options. Just they have separate application for that particular purpose. But in the main app, they have very limited functionality for the Uber Eats part. So in that particular case, Uber is doing a good job. So it is very straightforward that you can book a ride with this particular application. The process and everything is streamlined. But when user, if it is a first time user who is trying to use Pick.me application, they can find it difficult to use and make a decision. So they have to think, what are the requirements that I need? There are so many options. So if you give so many options, it will they will take some time to make a decision and uh, proceed with their action. And if you have multiple tasks to complete within a limited time, you will take more time making a decision compared to if you have only two tasks to complete. Let's say this is a movie application where you have to book seats. So if it is a like user experience wise, it is not a good design. So it has so many options. In the same layout, you have to enter your personal details. In the same screen, you have to select your seats, and in the same screen, you have to do the payment and everything. So it is really hard for you to uh, do your put your attention to one particular part. So make sure to categorize these based on uh, the personal or a selected seat and so on. So we are going to take a look at an example of that as well. So number one of this Hicks law example is reduce the options for time critical tasks. The more choices you give to your user, the longer it takes for them to make a decision. Let's say that you are going to do a survey or a questionnaire. You are going to send a questionnaire to your users after completing a form or after buying your product or something, and you have this kind of a layout. How are you feeling today? And you have so many options. Awesome, amazing, great, fine, and or so many options in that category. And you have this kind of a layout on your right hand side with only four options and four radio buttons. So users using this particular layout, they have to scroll and think, how are they feeling today? What is the difference between awesome and amazing? Are they feeling great? So many options. So they will take much time to select one of these criterias. But in here, they can quickly select whatever they feel. And this is a good layout for the time critical tasks. And even here in the menu, if you have so many options and these are not categorized or whatever, it will take so much of time. It can be a digital menu, website menu, or even a physically. If you visit a restaurant, if their menu is not categorized, if every uh, dish they have placed on a one single paper, users will find it hard to read it and select one option. So if you have categorized and if you have it in this kind of a layout, it will give users better control and they can make their decisions quickly. And even here, one click buy option. So in websites such as Amazon or Flipkart or even AliExpress or anything, you can have this, you have this button add to cart and buy now. So if you really want to buy it right now, and if you don't need any other products to be on your cart, you can quickly buy it without adding it to your cart. So it will reduce the number of clicks that users have to uh, do when they try to buy a product. And in Quora, also in any other application, we have this continue with Google or continue with Facebook buttons. So if you already sign into Facebook or Google, you can quickly click on that button and you don't have to enter any of your details, and you can go to the application dashboard and start using it straight away. Next one, break down complex process into smaller steps. So in here on the left hand side, we have all the information in one place. So you have to fill your email address and then select address and everything. But if you have this kind of a step layout with the uh, completed task marks marked in tick and so on, it will be easier for users. So they know what are the details that they already filled, what they have to fill in the future, and what is the page that they are already in. So that is also a good practice to give users less options at 1%, one go, and make sure to get their input in time. So they won't waste so much of time by reading all this information. Next one, categorize choices to make them easier to search for and identify. So if you go to website like Netflix or even Spotify, they have categorized based on different genres or uh, based on your watching habits. So it will be easier for you as well. So you can easily search and you can even click on whatever you like, and you don't spend so much of time browsing and try to find out what to watch. Next one is highlight recommended options. So in here, this cookie consent button, they have highlighted this particular recommended option. So users tend to click this it's okay part. So even in websites such as payment or cancel option is there, you can highlight pay now with this green color, and cancel should be bland like this. The no thanks button style can be used to cancel button. And even here, they have highlighted the recommended options. So users tend to select that particular option rather than scrolling through and look for any other options. All right, that is Hicks law. Now, this is Fitts law. Fitts law states that the larger the distance and smaller the size of the target, the longer it will take. According to this law, fast movement and smaller targets result in greater error rates due to the speed accuracy trade-off. So in order to make sure you use Fitts law to your advantage in your websites, you have to create larger targets. Targets can be buttons in call to action areas where you want your users to interact with. Increase the surface area of all call to action buttons. Minimize movements. So minimize movements is, let's say you have a form in your website and you have to scroll, users have to scroll through all the way down to fill the form. So that is not a good user experience. You can use steps, or you can uh, minimize these movements that users have to do in order to accomplish their task. That is a good practice to use in your website or a mobile application. Make some actions harder than others. So one example for that is when you try to delete a repository, or let's say when you try to deactivate your Facebook account or a Instagram or even LinkedIn account, you have to follow certain steps. So it is not straightforward. They have hidden it inside account. and then you have to go to settings. Then even if you go to settings, when you try to deactivate your account, they are asking for your password. Some of these are asking for confirmation email code. So some actions are harder than others. All right. The smaller your target area is, the longer it takes the user to perform that action based on the distance size ratio. So on left-hand side, the call to action buttons, these two are very small when comparing to these ones. So always make sure to create call to action buttons in clickable size. So users can easily perform their actions and they don't have to scroll or they don't have to find it uh, before clicking it. It is very straightforward and it is there. They can perform the action and move on to the next step easily. And next one, larger target area. So in here we have most of the websites when they pop like when they give you the prompt you the sign up screen, they only have sign up option. So you can easily add your email address, password, and confirm password. Those are prompting, and you can easily add those without an issue. You don't have to find it. You don't have to zoom in and read it and so on. So these options should be presented to your users with larger target area. So these are the target area you want your users to fill in this form. So you have to present it in a good way. And next one, placing commonly used functions together reduces the cursor movement. So in here, in Figma, so these are some commonly used elements in Figma. So they have placed it in one place. So you don't have to move your cursor and find it any other place. All the necessary things are here. So it will reduce the cursor movements as well, which will save your time. Not only on Figma, in other software such as Adobe Photoshop or even Illustrator, they follow the same principles. In here also, uh, you have two different buttons. When you click on this particular button, you can give them some kind of animation. So you can change the color, you can put a hover effect, you can even put a progress bar if it is if some background task is happening when users click on a button. So always make sure that you give your users information about what is happening. So don't do anything in the background without giving information to your users, because the users want to know what is happening after they perform certain action. So that is a good UX practice as well. Next one, to prevent frequent accidental shutdowns on their phones, Apple makes users swipe a slider to turn off their phone. So if you put this button right here without the slider, users will accidentally switch off their phone. So even now that Android or iOS, they are using same kind of a functionality to answer the phone call as well. So it won't give like accidental actions a chance. And to resend a power off, all users have to do is press the cancel button. So they can go away by clicking the cancel button. The cancel button's consequence doesn't compare to turning the phone off. So Apple makes it easier to accidentally press it. All right. Next, we have FitSlow for mobile devices. So these are the areas that users can easily, so let's say if it is a left-hand user, so this green color highlighted areas, the natural areas that users can reach with their thumb when they hold in the phone. So you have to make sure to put all your call to action buttons in this particular area, and they have to stretch this part to click on whatever the button, and this part is hard to reach with the left hand itself. So make sure to put all your call to action buttons and all the things that you need your users to interact with in the green color highlighted area. And the right hand, if they are holding their phone with the right hand, this green color highlighted area is the natural area. And when comparing those two, when adding those two together, these are the natural area for the users, the middle area. And make sure to put all your necessary call to action buttons within this area. So if you put something here and something here, it will be not that good when comparing to having some call to action buttons in the natural clickable area of your users' mobile devices. Okay. Next is Jacob's law. So we talked about Hicks law and the Fitts law. Now this is Jacob's law. Jacob's law states that when users are used to using a product, then users build their expectations around one familiar product that appears similar. Because users spend most of their time on other sites, they expect your site to work in the same way as other sites they have already visited. So let's say you're trying to create a online store. So e-commerce website or online store. So most of the websites that users have their previous experience with have the search bar in a certain place on top of the website and their cart icon in similar place on right hand side top. So if you don't uh, recognize this and if you don't use the same practices in your website, you place your search bar in some other place, cart icon in some other place, so users find it very difficult to navigate through your website. So that is not a good user experience. So they are expecting certain things because they have prior experience when they browse certain websites. This is the way that I want this website to behave. So if you are not following the same trends and same practices, your websites won't have that much of a users or a leads that you are looking for. So for instance, think how Amazon, Myntra, and most of the e-commerce sites behave. They follow similar patterns, similar checkout process. Most of the mental models are almost the same. This way, users will focus on their task rather than learning new modules. So, as users, most of us are very lazy to learn something new. So, we have certain mental models. We know that this is the user flow that we need to follow to buy a product from a certain website. First, we have to browse, search for the product, and then add to cart and then check out. So, if you're not following the same flow, users won't uh, like it. So you have to make sure to follow the same process and learn about your competitors and follow the process and make sure to give your users what they are expecting. Both the e-commerce websites using the same size selection option and following the buttons and information on the right side and the image on left. So this is the ideal layout that most of the users familiarize with when they try to buy a online product from e-commerce website. So you also have to maintain the same kind of a layout. You can change the styles and so on, but the hierarchy and the like placements should be there because otherwise they will get confused because they are expecting it to behave in the same way that their prior experience told them so. A great example is designing a page with search bar. Users are accustomed to seeing a search bar near the top of the page, often with a magnifying glass icon. So every software, even if it is a website or a software, even here in this preview software, I have magnifying glass. So users know that this is somewhere that I can search certain term. So you have to make sure you use the same icons, same visual representation, same places that they already have experience with in your designs as well. If a designer decides to put the search bar in a completely new place on the page, it can create confusion for the user. If they want to continue using your site, they have to relearn where their search bar is, taking the extra time. So, as I mentioned, if you decided to put your search bar in some other place rather than the place that they uh, already have experience, uh, the users have to relearn their user flow and relearn their uh, behavior, which is not a good practice. So every time they try to visit your website, you have your search bar in a different place, but all the other website have it in a similar place. But so users won't visit your website or because they don't want to relearn or relearn something new. So always make sure to follow the good practices and make sure to maintain the consistency. If it is a e-commerce website, it can be differentiated based on the requirements. So if uh, prior website made the standard and good practices, if users are behaving in a certain way, you also have to follow the same practices and create your product based on those users' previous behaviors. So it will give your user good satisfaction and they won't take much time to reach their goals. So in Best Buy or even Amazon or even Daraz or AliExpress have their search option up here, which is a good practice. Search bar positioning at Best Buy website. All right. Next one is Miller's Law. Miller's Law states that an average person can only keep 7 plus or minus in their working memory. Organizing content in smaller chunks will help users to understand, process, and memorize easily. So if you try to present your users with too much cognitive load, if you try to give them information about too many things at once, it will be really hard for them to remember and they will leave your website because users don't like when it comes to make a decision. If you present them with so many things, they don't like to make decisions. Some users might take so much of time and some users might leave the process altogether and try to find some alternative solution. So always make sure to give them information in chunks and in uh, something that they can manage within their working memory. Display information in chunks. This way, it is manageable to users to remember what they consume. So if you have your analytics or a reporting of your design of your website, and it has so many graphs like this, uh, it is really hard for users to uh, understand what is this graph about, and they can't put their attention to one particular graph. So always make sure to give them very less choices, and you can put these other graphs in some other places where they can compare and see later. So always make sure to give them manageable chunks and information in manageable chunks so they can uh, navigate and understand what is it about easily. In here, toggle keys are limited to 6 in the notification panel, reducing the cognitive load on the user. So in Android uh, menu, they only have very limited icons, very necessary icons on top. And if you want to see more, you have to slide it down and look for the other items. On slide in the notification panel, users get a view of quick panel settings where toggle keys are placed in rows and columns, making it easier for users to follow. So even though they have space to put all these icons down here, they have added very limited amount of icons with spaces. So that will reduce the cognitive load that users have to go through and make a selection. So that is the idea behind that particular UI. So even in credit card, breaking a checkout process into steps and creating spacing for card numbers. So they have 3 steps for checking out. Number one, they have to insert customer info, then shipping info, and finally the payment. Even in the payment, they have designed the UI in actual physical credit card. So users can enter their card number and the name of the card, and expiry date and code can be edited, can be entered very easily. Okay, so in left-hand side design, the sign-up form has all the details, all the inputs underneath each other. Whereas on right-hand side, they have categorized. They have grouped them based on uh, different requirements. This can be personal information, these can be educational information, and so on. So it is a good practice to categorize. So it will give users better understanding and they can focus their attention on one particular part of the screen at certain given time. So it will increase the uh, client ratio as well when comparing to leads, and also it will ease up the process for your users as well. They spend less time on filling out the form. Okay. Next one is serial position effect. This law states that we tend to remember the first and the last item in the series. There are two main concepts involved in the serial position effect. Number one is primary effect. The tendency to recall the first item is called the primary effect because we require less processing effort in rehearsing the item. And the recency effect, the tendency to recall the last item, is called the recency effect because our working memory preserves temporary information. So if I tell you a list of animals or whatever countries, most of you tend to remember the first name I say and the last one. So that is what serial position effect is. We tend to remember the first one and the most recent one, the last one I said on the list. Highlight key information in the beginning and the end while placing the least important items in the middle of your sequence. So in here, this can be a sign up form, terms and conditions. So you put your main content, the highlight key information on top in the beginning, and all the unnecessary details that users won't pay their attention to in the middle, and finally the call to action button all the way down. So this is the first one, primary button, primary area, and this is the recency. So users will remember this one, and they will easily read this part and maybe this one if they really want to, and then click on the call to action button. So this gaming speedometer is on the right hand side and the map is on the left hand side in display. So you can distinguish your attention and identify your location, and also if you really need, you can check the speed of your car as well. And even Instagram, the bottom navigation home is on the left side, profile option is on the right side, and all the least important options are in the middle. So they identified these are the most important options, and all the least important information are in the middle of the screen. So users will remember the first one and the last one. Okay. In order to make sure to use serial position effect in your screen, number one, you have to maintain task relevant information within the user interface. So we have grid lines in here. Even in Figma, when we try to design something, we have this task related information. They are highlighting the position that we are in. And even if I try to create a ruler, it will allow me to do so. So we can identify the position of our certain element that we are already working with. And the grid line, even in the presentation right here, they highlighting the page that I'm already in. And also I have search options and all the options that I require, the task relevant information in the working area. Limit the amount of recall required. So in this particular layout, these are the filters chosen by the user. So if they want to remove one filter, they don't have to refresh the page. They can just click on this close icon or the cross icon and remove that filter altogether, and only have these two filters to filter their product. And even here, we have a sorting option. So users can sort based on their requirement. It can be by the price, highest rated, or recency, or whatever. They can do it easily without refreshing the page. So they don't have to recall what they already did. They can easily play around with these filters and select the product they like. Empathize key information in the beginning and the end. So in the Apple website, they don't have much information in the beginning. And even in the end, they just have the branding name of the device and some motto, some words that describe that particular device shortly, and also in the end they have pricing. So all this information, key information, are in the beginning and the end, and their story, what are the features, what are the technologies that they are using, are everything in between this first and last part. So the users who try to reach their website, they first go through this one and they read their story and finally come to this particular place, and if they want, they can buy the product without an issue. Okay, next one is Zeigarnik effect. This happens with all of us. When we have some important task to do and we forget to do it, we tend to feel bad about it. This is the Zeigarnik effect. It states that we remember uncompleted and uninterrupted tasks more than the completed tasks. So if I consider LinkedIn, a LinkedIn profile, it if you don't fill your information, if you don't fill all your information, it will give you this kind of a progress bar on top. So if whenever you try to log into your website, it will continuously prompt you and ask you to complete your website to in order to use the profile. So that is a good like one example of Zeigarnik effect, how different companies are using this effect for you to complete your profile. And then this one step tracker, so it will show you how many you can set a goal. These are the number of steps that I want to take in daily basis. So if you are not reaching that goal, it will tell you. So you have to go this much of steps to complete your daily goal. So goal setting is another uh, use case of Zeigarnik effect. So you can use it in a good way for your let your users know what is happening. So most of us actually, when we have this kind of a prompt, so you haven't completed some task, we tend to complete it. So that is the idea behind it. Okay, now we have one Restroff effect. It is also known as the isolation effect. This effect predicts that when multiple similar objects are present, the one that differs from the rest is most likely to be remembered. So in the infographic here, highlight elements like call to action to stand out from the rest in the design. It is easily noticeable by users. So in this particular layout, we have text element and image and everything, and we have highlighted the call to action button, the recommended option that we need our users to click on. So if we highlight it, the users will remember it easily and they will click on it. That is one Restroff effect. So that is all the UX laws that we are going to cover in our class. So whenever you get a project, always make sure to remember these laws and uh, practice these laws when you are doing your designs. And now let's discuss about wireframing. Wireframing is also a really important step in UI and UX design. And by doing wireframe, even though if it is taking such time when considering, so there are some clients that say, I don't want you to do the wireframe, directly do the design, but please don't do that, because in the end, so when you launch your product, you will find out that some of these things that you should have avoid by doing the wireframes, that you should have uh, send your wireframes for users feedback and so on. So don't skip the process. Just make sure that you follow each and every step in the UX process and do the wireframes as well. A wireframe is generally monochromic drawing that is created in the design phase of design thinking process. So after you do your user research, empathize with your users, interview few users, and also gather requirement from your client and every stakeholder and even the team members, and then you can come up with the wireframes. After creating all these personas and diagrams, everything, you can put your learnings in place by creating a wireframes. So actually, when, let's say, comparing you directly go into your design using computer rather than uh, doing the wireframes in pencil and by using pencil and paper. So the creativity wise, if you get a pencil and paper, you have so much of creativity. You are not limited to technical constraints or anything. So make sure to do your wireframes first. So wireframes don't have to be perfect. It can be a sketch, and then you send it to feedback. And then again, you can fine tune your wireframes and so on. So make sure to do your wireframes in the process. It provides a blueprint of the page structure, layout, information, and functions. So as I mentioned, your wireframes don't have to be a perfect ones. It just have to be so if you want to show the demonstrate the structure of your page, layout, information, and the functions that you want to put in your design. So those are the basic things. Those are the things that you should only put on your wireframes, not so many things. This in turn gives a clear idea to the stakeholders about the functioning and visual representation of the application UI. So after doing these wireframes, it can be a pencil and paper sketch. You can get feedback from your stakeholders. Stakeholders can be the client, and even there are some team members that uh, client have in its team, and also your own team's product owner, the co-designers, developers, any decision maker within the project. So you can send this to those people and give a clear idea about visual representation and functions of the your application and the UI itself. So these are some reasons why do designers do wireframes. It actually saves times. So even though it takes some times in the beginning to do the wireframes and things, when it comes to designing, when it comes to visual designing using softwares like Figma and even the feedback gathering, these wireframes will be helpful for you. So let's say you don't do the wireframes thoroughly and move on to the designing step with only one wireframe. So you will have to do so many changes in the design itself in Figma. So that is really time consuming, and it will take so much of time. So if you do these little changes in wireframes by gathering feedback, it will save you that time in the end. And it is also help you to gather feedback, UX design functional testing. So if you try to gather feedback to your visual designs rather than doing your wireframes and get feedback to them, it is not a good practice, because most of the time when users are when end users are presented with actual design, they will focus more on the design itself rather than the functions and the hierarchy of the design, visual elements and everything. So they will focus on the colors that you have selected, the typography, the graphics and everything. So that is not a good way to get feedback. So if you need uh, feedback on your functional testing and the hierarchy of your data representation, you always should do should gather feedback on your wireframes itself, and then it will help you to create accurate designs. So as I mentioned, uh, by creating the first wireframe, you sending it to your clients or the end users to gather their feedback. So you can interview them, you can ask them to perform certain tasks, thinking that this is the UI, and then you will gather feedback. So what are the areas that I should focus on? What should be the information architecture? What is the presentation? Where should I place my call to action buttons? Where should I place my search bar? So those are the things that you can identify by carrying out this wireframe based feedback gathering. So it will help you to create accurate design, because you have a fine-tuned and the thoroughly designed wireframe at your hand. So it is, you can use it like a blueprint. So you don't have to gather requirement again when you do the visual design. So it is already there. So you can just follow your wireframes and create visually aesthetic designs by following these wireframes that you already fine-tuned. Okay, there are three wireframe types: low fidelity, mid fidelity, and high fidelity. So let's talk about low fidelity wireframes. We call it lo-fi as well. They are also known as a paper wireframes, which are created roughly. They do not contain detailed grids, scales, or pixels, but functions, contents, headings, topics are present in a raw form without an accurate structure. So all the things that should include in the UI is there. So all the necessary things. So we don't consider about the grids or the alignments or anything. That is a raw presentation of the structure, accurate structure and the hierarchy of our design. So this is an example of the low fidelity wireframe. So you can see it is a sketch diagram, and all the user flow is also mentioned in the screen. So this is the onboarding process. These are the images placement and what is the text that should be there, what are the buttons, all the necessary things are there in the low fidelity wireframe. And then we have mid-fidelity wireframe. These types of wireframes can be commonly used for communication with the stakeholders and end users. Mid-fidelity wireframes contain grid, scale, and pixel. Hence, they are more accurate than low-fidelity wireframes. This makes it one of the most used types of wireframes among the UI UX designers. So when it comes to gathering feedback, so some of the end users or stakeholders don't like to give feedback to these kind of sketch designs. So in order to make it more presentable, what UX designers do is they make them in a computer software such as Pencil or even Figma. You can recreate these wireframes, and you can send them to get users feedback. So that is what where mid-fidelity wireframes came in. So it can be uh, you can visually represent all these elements that you sketched out, and you can display them, the scale and the placement and everything will be there, but those are not very detailed, but you can present it to your users, something like this. So there are softwares like Pencil, Balasmic, and even Figma. You can create this kind of a layout by using their own library of items. So this is presentable when comparing to this one. And next, in the end, we have high fidelity wireframe. Low fidelity and mid fidelity wireframes are devoid of feature images and written content. They make appearance in high fidelity wireframes. With more concrete shape to UI components, this type of wireframe contains the complete blueprint of the design and is the most accurate and almost similar to visual design screen without much colors. So this is the high fidelity wireframe. You can see that it is presentable. Even though all the images and the colors are not there, the structure and the visual representation and the placement and alignment and everything is there. So this wireframe, you can create your final wireframes in this particular version and send to your visual. Even if you are doing visual design, you can use this as the blueprint. And if you're sending it to someone else, you can send this documentation or the files for them to follow and do the visual design for your designs. So in here we have all these things, the alignment and the components and the placement of the components and the hierarchy and everything are uh, making appearance in these high fidelity wireframes. So these are some wireframing tools that you can use. This is Figma that you are already familiar. This is Sketch app, another UI UX application, and this is Balasmic. Uh, Balasmic is actually only for this wireframing purposes. And there's another application called Miro, which you can use as well. All right, so those are about wireframes. And then we have splash screen, the perfect splash screen. The splash screen was born out of the requirement for apps to spend a few seconds setting up before the user can get moving. Keep it simple and short. Elegant animation to present your app. Always remember 3-second rule. And if you go over, show a loading indicator. So splash screen actually, so even if you load any application in your mobile, it will give you a splash screen. So the quick, it can be go up to certain seconds, but it should be at maximum 3 seconds. If you go further than that, you have to show them the loading indicator. Otherwise, users don't like to wait. So technical advantage of this splash screen is now when you try to load your application, there can be so many images, so many content. So we have to make requests with our server. So we can't show our users the loading images without any images or without any content. So that is why we are using this loading screen. So by showing users this loading screen, we load everything that they need to see in the next screen from our backend. So that is the technical idea behind this loading screen. So always make sure to make it short and elegant. If it is uh, over 3 seconds, we have to show them the loading indicator, how many seconds remaining to load, and even the progress bar will work. Load the absolute minimum data from the server, but making sure you have all the info needed to show the next screen immediately. So that is the purpose. Integrate errors into the splash screen to avoid ugly pop-ups. So I think you have already familiar with when using location-based applications such as Google Maps or even Uber or even PickMe. They are prompting you to switch on the location before continuing with the app because the application are based on location services, the GPS, and uh, it can't work without this particular service. So you can integrate errors in the splash screen and ask users to switch on the location service and give permission to location service and so on in order to continue with the application. Take this opportunity to ensure your users are running an up-to-date version of the app. And if they aren't, direct them to the stores to update. So if your application is not the latest updated one, we can prompt users to check. We can check if it is the latest application or not. And if it is not, we can prompt them to update it right now, and we can direct them to associated Play Store or Apple App Store to update the application. These are some of the examples of loading animation in the splash screen. Uber kept it simple, but it is a very nice animation to immerse you into the app experience. And for the functionality changing content, it may be better to load images after the splash screen has completed. So this particular application, it has so much of content to load in the backend. So it is giving this splash screen some time and make sure to load all these images before showing them to the users. Shazam integrates their logo into the main interface seamlessly. So Shazam splash screen and also app interface is kind of similar. So they are using their logo to do the main task as well as load data from the server as well with the animation. So these are some examples of application and how they use this splash screen to good effect. This X Confessions app shows errors and update requests directly in the splash screen to avoid pop-ups. So they are giving you all the information that they asking for, like your internet connection is not stable, they will give the message. Your location service is not switched on, Pick Me or Uber or any location-based application will give you a message. And even if the software is not up to date, they will send you a message and asking you to update the software, and they can put a button here and direct users to particular app store. And in here, this quiz application, it actually is a streaming application where they ask questions in a live broadcast. So they have to load so many things, the live video stream and everything. So it is taking some time uh, f- to gather all this from the server. So they are using this kind of animation. It can take some time. Even here, this trivia application, they are also streaming some videos, live streaming. So it is taking some time for your video to appear in your website. So they can use this kind of animated splash screen in order to give users better user experience while showing the loading screen somewhere here. These are some top reasons people uninstall app. Number one is not in use. So for an example, let's say you want to scan some documents. You download a document scanning app such as Adobe PDF scan or something, and that is you only use it one time, and after that you deleting that application because you are not using it anymore. So number one reason it is not in use. Number two, it is limited storage. So if your application is taking too much storage in user's device, so when they try to download something or when they try to take a picture, it will show the message. So users tend to delete the application that takes so much of space. Always make sure to make your applications lightweight as well. Excessive advertising. So if you go to a website, if you download a free game or a documentation website which has so many advertisements, so every time you try to load the application, you have to play a video. Every time you have to continuously play a game, you have to play a video. So that is excessive advertising. So people delete application because of that as well. And next one, excessive notifications. So if your application don't have a customized notification and it is try to send you so many notifications in daily basis, so it is kind of distracting. So that is another reason that users delete applications from their phones. Confusion. So application is not appear to be behaving in a certain way that it is supposed to. For an example, let's say uh, dialogue application. So it is not very fast. So people are confused with that application. So some of them are deleting it. Or maybe a banking application. So they will change their bank service provider altogether because of this application. So confusion is another thing. Technical issues. Your application is buggy. It gives so many errors. It's not behaving in the way it is supposed to. So technical issues can be another issue. And there are some other issues as well. So those are the things that splash screen can eliminate. And also you have to consider these top reasons why people uninstall app, and make sure you are not doing any of these mistakes in your applications when you're designing application. So that is what I'm going to present today, and let's talk about your capstone project. This one. So any questions so far? Any questions so far? How about Chamara? Janit?
Everything okay, sir.
Okay. Ruksha, how about you?
Yes, no doubt, sir.
Okay, so let's discuss about our capstone project. So I already added it to our Google Classroom. So I have in previous weeks also I have added some materials. So apart from the video recordings and the slides, I have added some extra resources, these links and some book suggestions and some more books as well. So you can find these books, the design of everyday things. It is available online as a PDF version, and also all these available things I have put it on our Google Classroom. So this is the capstone project. Let's read it. So I want you to create a travel experience application. So do you have any idea about what are the travel experience applications that you already familiar with? Can you give me one example? Okay, we can say the booking.com or even TripAdvisor or any travel or leisure booking application. We can take it as a travel experience application. So what I want you to do is create this kind of a travel experience application. So this is the objective. The goal of this assignment is to prompt students to create a concept design for travel experience app, focusing on user engagement and intuitive interface within I actually added 2 weeks, but we have only 1 week to do this assignment. So make sure to submit it by 1st of June. So the areas that you have to focus is user engagement and intuitive interface. So those are the only 2 areas that you have to focus on. Task description: you are part of a design team working on a revolutionary travel experience application that connects users with personalized local experience during their trips. Your task is to design the interface for this app, prioritizing ease of use and personalization and engagement. So you have to design an application for these people to give them personalized local experience during their trips. So if I go to applications such as, let's say, TripAdvisor, so this is a good example of travel experience application. So you can read about it, or even booking.com. You can do competitor analysis and find out what are the good things about these applications, and go to Google reviews and find out what are the bad things, what are the things that users don't like about this application. There are so many applications like Airbnb and so many providers in this particular domain. So you can select one of these and do one or two of these and do your uh, competitor analysis as well. Okay. So you have to prioritize ease of use, personalization, and engagement. So I don't want you to create so many screens. I just want you to create the login screen, splash screen maybe, and then onboarding process where we gain information about what they can do within the application. It can be 2 or 3 screens with sliders, and then sign up or sign in, and finally dashboard. So those are the things that I want you to do. The requirement don't have so many screens, even though the application has so many screens. You can decide on what are the things that you can do, but minimum you have to have those screens I mentioned. So the first thing uh, is you have to follow the UX process that I mentioned in the second session of our class. So these are the assignment guidelines. Number one, brainstorm and outline key features the travel experience application should offer. Consider user personalization, discovery, booking, and engagement. Draft a concept or a user story to guide your design process. So first thing you have to, I give you the requirement, the basic requirement. Now it is your task to brainstorm and find out what are the key features these travel experience applications have. And I want you to consider user personalization, discovery, booking, and user engagement. Engagement can be, users can like these particular places or hotels, and they can add reviews and so on. So that is how they can engage within the application. And then draft a concept or a user story to guide your design process. So I don't want you to consider so many users. Take only one user and try to interview. So you can actually in real life interview someone who is traveling, one of your friends or even a family member, and ask certain questions about their traveling experiences, how they book a ride, how they book a hotel, and so on. And then create a user story for that particular person only. So I already discussed about user story and persona creation. So persona, you can create a persona based on that user's input. So you can use this kind of a layout. Let's go to Figma, and in here we have personas. Start with the template. You can use this template to input whatever the information they have given and create a quick description about them and personality, and ask about all these questions and fill the persona. based on this particular one user's requirement, because you don't have much time. So that is why I'm only asking you to interview one user, and you can practice when you get a project. You can have to interview more and more users, but at least one user is necessary to get their information and the feedback. Okay. Create low fidelity wireframes illustrating the layout and flow of the app. Focus on user interactions, information hierarchy, and ease of navigation. So after you interview users, after you done some research about the competitors and everything, I want you to come up with the low fidelity wireframe. So low fidelity wireframe should describe the layout and the flow of the application. The flow can be they download the application, then sign up, then using the application. That is the simple flow. So you have to make sure you put that in your design as well. So you don't have to create a high fidelity wireframe or anything like that. This is just a low fidelity wireframe. You can sketch it out using pencil and paper. And later, when you present it to the class, you have to uh, take a picture of that, and when you sharing your screen, show us the wireframes that you have designed. So it don't have to be very detailed wireframe, just the pencil sketch and pencil sketches will be enough. Okay, next one, use Figma. Figma is preferred. You can use any other applications, but Figma is widely used, so that is preferred. Or a design tool of choice to craft high fidelity designs for the app interface. Emphasize visual appeal, consistent design language, and intuitive user interactions. So I want you to use Figma to translate these wireframes you design to visual representations. You have to emphasize on visual appeal. So visual appeal, how to emphasize on visual appeal? You can select a good typeface to give you a message. You can select certain colors based on the color theory and color psychology. And then consistent design language. So you can create different components to maintain the consistency. So for the cards, you can create components. So let's say we have our uh, application can be like this. It has this kind of a design card for one place, one landmark. So you can create a component for this, and you can use the same component again in another place and replace the image of that, and so on. So you can create one component and use it in multiple places in order to do your design. All right. Develop an interactive prototype of the app design to showcase its functionality and user flow. Prepare a short pitch presentation, slides, or a video outlining the app concept, key design elements, and walkthrough of the interactive prototype. Explain how the design enhances the travel experience. So I don't want you to create a PowerPoint presentation or anything. If you can quickly describe your your thinking process, your creative process, what are the steps you follow, and everything. If you can describe it by just sharing your screen and Figma design or wireframes, that is enough. But in cases if you really want to create a presentation and follow that, you can do that as well. This is the evaluation criteria. Concept and ideation is number one. Originality of the travel app, concept and consideration of users' needs. So needs are given up here. And then wireframes, clarity and logic in illustrating apps layout and user flow. So you have to present your wireframes. It can be low fidelity wireframes. You just have to take a picture and present it to the classroom. UI design, application of design principles, visual appeal, and consistency in the high fidelity design. So design principles we learned during last few weeks and today also. You have to apply these to your designs, and visual appeal should be there. Visual appeal can be increased by using good typography, good visual representations, white spaces, colors, buttons. So those are the things that you should consider when uh, coming up with a good visual appeal. Consistency can be maintained by creating uh, these kind of a components, and all the buttons that you are using in the website should be similar, should be consistent. All the text, typography, images should maintain the consistency throughout your designs. Sorry. Okay, prototype and pitch, functionality and coherence of the interface interactive prototype, as well as quality and clarity of the pitch presentation. So prototyping, I will tell you after this one, so you will be able to create a quick prototype as well. This assignment challenges the students to apply their UI UX skills to create an engaging scenario, focusing on designing a user-friendly travel experience app that reflects both innovative thinking and user-centered design. So these are the deliverables. You have to share your Figma link to high fidelity design and interactive prototypes. Submit a presentation if you have one, uh, concept and ideation, wireframes and UI design concepts. So if you have any questions, you can email or send a message in WhatsApp group chat and I will reply. So let's uh, create a project from the beginning, so it will be helpful this kind of a project. Can't show you the pencil and paper wireframes, so that is why I opened this kind of a this Figma application. So let's start off. So the first thing, when you get this kind of a idea from your client, what you have to do is you have to ask questions. What are the requirements that you have? So who are our target users? How we can empathize with our users? So let's open up our presentation regarding this use of UX flow. This one. The first one is empathize. So first we have to identify what are our users' needs, what are our clients' needs, who are our target users. So in order to do that, we have to interview few users and ask questions from our users. What are your travel habits? Are you traveling frequently? In when traveling, what are the problems that you are facing? What are the applications that you are using currently? So those are the questions that you can ask, and then you can gather input. Maybe you can create a questionnaire and send it to some of your friends. Or I actually need only one person, and you can interview one person and create the story based on that person's input. So that is empathizing process. And even in the empathizing, you have to carry out user research, and apart from that, competitor analysis. So TripAdvisor is good example of travel experience application, and even Airbnb and also booking.com or any other hotels.com, any other Skyscanner, Agoda. So all these applications you can follow and get an input about what are the things that users like about these applications. You can easily go to their Apple App Store and Google Play Store and read their reviews and understand about the pros and cons of these applications. You can mention them in a table, maybe. Okay, even you can present it verbally when you presenting uh, your design. All right, so that is about empathizing, then define all these requirements, and then you start off your wireframes. So as I mentioned, it should be a low fidelity wireframes, which you can do using pencil and paper, and sketch out all the things that you learn, and sketch out the best interface. So this should be a mobile application. So create a mobile screens and sketch out whatever the inputs that you have gathered. You can get design inspirations from those applications I mentioned, and even Ribble and Behance have good examples of these kind of applications. So you can get your design inspiration from these as well. Okay. In the defining process, you can create these wireframes, and maybe you can send it to your friend and get the feedback and fine tune your wireframes and so on. So you can do that process as well. So after that, in the ideation process, what you can do is you can convert these wireframes you designed to working visual designs in Figma itself. So let's say these are the wireframes I came up with. So, okay, these are my wireframes. I'm going to take a screenshot of that. It here. Okay, these are my wireframes. for my travel experience application, and this is the onboarding process. So after creating the wireframes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert this into visual design. So what I can do is I can open a phone and then let's select this one on top. So I'm start creating these layouts. The first one, these are kind of similar. So consistently, I can create components for all these elements. So I can start off with this navigation bar, the dots on top. So the first thing I'm going to create is components for those. All right, now I'm going to create an ellipse right here. I'm not going to consider about the sizes much. I just want to like present it to you and demonstrate it to you how should you approach it when you get a project. So let's give it 30 by 30, and this is our dot, like this carousel presentation. And I'm going to create another one. So you can see this have two states. Number one is this default state, and the active slides, it's highlighted in black color. So I can highlight that in particular color. So I'm going to highlight it in black color like this. So these are the two components. So in order for you to see it better, okay, this is the active state. This is the normal state. So let's create a component for that particular element, create component set, and I'm going to name it as indicator, and it has two elements. Let's rename this as state. This one is active. This one is default. Okay, now I have this indicator right here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to my assets section. Now I have this indicator right here. I'm going to put it in my design. So I need 4 of these. So I'm going to paste it 4 times. And maybe put it inside another frame. Frame selection, and I'm going to call it uh, indicator, maybe. And then go to auto layout and directions here. And I'm going to give it 20 or 10 pixels gap and center align it like this. And I don't want everything to be inactive. So I will create the first one active and all other 3 is default. So this is the dot navigation of that particular screen. So I have created a component, so I can reuse it in any other screen. So let's say I try to create the second screen. So what I can do is I can make this inactive or default, and second screen, this one is active. So you can follow the same thing for other screens as well. All right, now next one is this particular image. So in order to create the image, I'm going to delete this one for now. What you can do is you can create another frame like this. Okay, let's say this is our image, and I'm going to get an image from here. Resize it. So when resizing, make sure to press the shift key, otherwise it will not look in that good because it will affect your aspect ratio as well. So this is my image. So we can add some border radius, let's say 15. So this is the border radius I'm going to add, and maybe some effects as well. Okay. And then we have image. So image is also can be a component. So if you have so many images, you can create an image component as well. So in order to do that, I'm going to drag this right here and make it, name it as image and create a component. So right now you know how to create a component with image and so on. So I'm going to use this right here and align it center. And we have this back and forward buttons, like back and forward buttons. So in order to create those, we have plugins here. So in plugins, I'm going to search any icons will do, but I'm going to use material symbols. So if you search for material symbols and click on that, it will give you this kind of a layout with all the icons. Then I'm going to search for back key. So this one is back. And next, forward. This one is the forward key. Okay, now we have back key and forward key. So I want them to be here. So let's put this one inside a frame. Let's call it back. And I'm going to give it some background color and border radius. I want to make it a circle and put auto layout and add some padding in here as well. 10, 10. Okay. So it will look like this. There's this one right here. So you can center align by selecting the layer that you want to align with and the other layer, and then click on this one. It will vertically align right here. Or even when you drag it right here, it will show you the guidelines. So this is the center line. So I'm going to do the same thing for this one as well. So in order to do that, I'm going to create a component with this one so we can use it later as well. So I'm going to copy this again and change the icon right here to other one. Okay, now let's create a component. Using these two. So we have two variants. This one I'm going to call it direction back. This one direction forward. Okay. Now we have our arrows as I will use them here. This one right here. Another one. This is forward. Select both of them and center align them as well. So it will look like this. And then we have some text right here. So you have to consider the typography that you should use. And one way you can do that is you have to go to Behance and get some design inspiration for your design and select the typography based on what other users are already using. Or you can directly go some where here like Apple typescale.com or even Google fonts and try to find out different fonts that will use you can use in your design. I'm going to use this particular font, Poppins. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a text layer right here. It is a heading, so I'm not going to create a box like this. I'm just going to uh, click on it and it will be like this. Select the font as Poppins. I want it to be bold and change the font size to maybe 32. And then this is my text. I'm going to increase the font size to something around 48. So it is actually easily visible. Okay, this is my text. So it is lack of colors because I'm not going to select colors right now. It is actually, you can select colors, whatever the colors you like. You can use gradients or anything. And this is how we can create a heading. And you know how to create a paragraph as well. And let's talk about the buttons. So for the buttons also, we can do the same thing. We can first create, uh, we have a share button here. So I'm going to create a text called share. We don't need it to be this big. So 24 will be enough, and font size also medium. Let's put it inside a frame and call it a button and put some background to it as well. You already know how to create a gradient. So I'm going to create a gradient for this one. Let's use something like this. For this color, some darker version. Okay. I want to change the direction of my design as well. So I'm going to use it like this. Maybe the text size should be much larger. 36 will do. Okay, now we have our button and add some padding to that. 30 pixels from this end and 15 pixels from this end. Let's add 60. And then add some border radius. Okay, this is our button. So this is the default state of our button. So I'm going to create another button and this is the mouse over state. So for the mouse over state, I'm going to increase the intensity of this blue color a little bit. And even this blue color will be little dark. So this is the default. This is the and let's create a inactive state as well, just in case. Inactive state, I'm going to give this gradient 50%. So that is the inactive state. So let's create a component set for the button as well. But the first one, I'm going to rename this not state. First one is default over and inactive. So let's place this button here. Set the paragraph as well. So always make sure now you don't have, when you do the designing, make sure to switch on your grid lines as well. So right now I don't have grid lines switched on. So layout grid, columns, and make sure to put whatever the amount that you need as gutter, and 4 columns, and gutter can be 20, and margin is also say 30. Now we have margin, so make sure to resize this according to your grid line. Okay, I'm only going to create designs inside this grid line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create 2 grid lines right here. So you can drag from your ruler and create this kind of a guideline. You can delete it by selecting it and click on delete button. Okay. Let's create a paragraph right here. And for the text, use this one. I don't want it to be bold. It's regular. The font size should be 16. I want it to be center lined, so it is okay. Okay, so this is my design. So when I do the design, I figure out that my indicators look good if these are here. So I can move my image up top. And have my indicators right here. So you can change your wireframe alignments if you think that it is a good idea to change it like that. All right. Now I have my paragraphs, and now let's put the buttons. Number 1, this button is here. It is called share, center line. And we have another button to skip. So let's create that button as well. This can be primary button, and the skip can be the secondary button. So the skip, you can use the similar way. You can create it similar way, frame selection. And background, I'm going to give it a very light background like this one, and use the same padding, 60 and 15. AutoLayout, 60 and 15 and 10 for this. Now this is my skip button, and it has only 2 states, hover and active, regular. Let's call it default because we use the same wording for other button. And the next one is hover. Let's create inactive button for as well, just in case. For the hover, I'm going to increase the opacity of that to 50%. And for the inactive, it is 0. So it don't have, okay, no, 25. And I'm going to reduce the opacity of this one to 50. So it will look like this. Okay, let's create a button component again. Call it secondary button. Three states: default, poor, and inactive. Okay. Now we are going to put that button down here. So you can see that button sizes are different. So you can resize it because the skip has only 4 characters. It is different. So you can resize it like this. Don't try to put a fixed size up here because we want it to be like that, taking the size of the content. So you can change it right here. So the button sizes and the text proportions are little bit off, but I'm just trying to demonstrate it to you. So make sure to create it properly when you do your designs. Okay, these are the things that they have in this design. All the things are covered. Okay, now next, let's create the second one. This is the first screen. This is the second screen. For the second screen, I want this one to be inactive and this one to be active. I'm going to use different image for this one. Let's use this one maybe. Okay, step 2 is that, and let's create step 3. The content and everything, you can create your own content and put. Just put in step 1, step 2, step 3. Let's create, copy this one. And finally, step 4. So in here, we don't need this one to be active. This one is the active one. It should be inactive. This is the active one. Let's change the image of that one as well. So make sure you select the like correct image, otherwise the whole frame will fill up. Okay, these are the 4 things that I created. From my wireframes, I created these, these things. This is actually not very high fidelity prototype, but all the components I created and the design is there. So this can be my final design, but it is not very optimized. So don't take it as final design. I'm trying to demonstrate it to you. So after you create these wireframes, now you have to create the prototype. So say I'm going to first and then my atoms here created. So this is the visual design. And now I'm going to create a prototype by using these designs. So when you try to create a prototype, let's have to create a focal point like flow point as well, starting point. So select first one of your design and click on this prototype right here and click on flow starting point. Flow 1. I'm going to call it onboarding because this is the onboarding process of our screen. All right. So now we have this onboarding process. And then in the prototype, there's an option called show prototype settings. So this is the device that we selected. So we can select whatever the device we like. And this is the one I selected from the artboard itself, the frame. So I'm going to use that. So if I click on here, it will show my prototype in this particular device. So it is loading right now. Okay, this is my design. So you can see now it is not functioning properly. So now I will show you how we can make it work. Okay, now in order to make it work properly, like this button should work and this uh, identification bar should work and even this button should work. So this is how we can do it. So in here we have this button, and in the prototype what we do is go to prototype. Let's select this one first. So go to prototype and select whatever the uh, element that you need, and then go to interaction. While hovering, we need it to change state to hover. So I will do that again in the next one. So when we hover over this, we need state to change to this one. And then for this one also, I'm going to select my button, the first default button, and go here, click on interactions, click on plus sign, and I want it to be not on tap while hovering. While mouse hovering, I want its states to change to hover. So this is the state that it will change. So if I go to my design again, so now it is visible. So this is changing when I mouse over these elements. So I want this to, when click on that, I want this to go to different page. Like when we press on skip button, I want them to move to this one. So this is how we can create a prototype. Like when you click on this skip button, they should move to the second step because they don't want to see that one. So skip button will take them to this one. Actually, the skip button is there to eliminate the process altogether, but in this particular case, I want to show it to you. So it will take you to this particular screen. And this one, if they click on this particular second item, it will also take them to the second step. And third button, click on that and you will do this kind of a plus sign, and it will take you to the third screen like this. You can drag it and drop there. And fourth screen, if you click on that right here, you can take them to the fourth screen like this. So now let's reload our design. If I go back and click here, it will take me to the third step, and finally this one. So in order for it to work in every instance, I have to add the same thing to these ones as well. So this one, the first one should take me here. Second one, same place. Third one to this third step. And final one to do the same thing up here. First dot is for the first board. Second dot is for the second board. And the final one is for the final board. This one is for the first one. This one is for the second one. Third one. Sorry. Third one. The fourth one. So I have one rag here. Now if I open my prototype again by clicking on this, if I click here, it will go here. So it will change according to what you already pressing. So you can do the similar thing to these buttons as well. And now let's look at some other example. So we have little bit time. So I already told you how to create. This is already done. Okay, this is how you can create a clickable prototype. So I'm not expecting you to do this, but you can follow the video, and it is a good thing if you can start off with the prototyping process as well. Okay. So this is only for the onboarding process. You can use the same methods any in any other places of your design, like this. Let's use another card. I'm going to use this one. Let's say this is my dashboard for my design. So first thing I have is my own image, user image. So I'm going to place it right here, and I'm going to search for a let's use this one. Okay, this is my image. I'm going to make it a circle by giving this 100. So this is my profile image. So it is placed here, and then I have some text called welcome. I want them to be left aligned. Always make sure to put your grid layout grid and columns on for column layout, and 30 margin was the one I have given. So I'm not going to go over these lines that I have added. Okay, should come inside. Even this one is inside. Welcome, and then the screen, and then I want to display a slider of all the travel places that they can go. So how I can create a slider is like this. So let's create a slider component first, card. The first thing I have to do is I have to create a frame. This frame is for the image. So in the image, I'm going to use this Airbnb website. Repeat this one. Okay, let's use this one as my image. Okay, this is my image. You can change the image settings by pressing on Shift key and dragging it. And also there are some options here, fit and crop. You can crop the image and also tile the image if you like. So I'm going to use fill. Okay, this is my image. I'm going to give it some border radius, maybe 15 pixels, like this. And then below this image, I want a heading. So this is my heading. Springtime in Prague will be my heading. font size can be 32. And also there's a small paragraph. I'm going to put this as my paragraph. Okay. So now I have to put this inside here and make sure it has the same width as my content. So let's do 370 by 370. I want it to be a square, and maybe align the image. This, then put this text right below, and paragraph as well. Let's change the color to black. And then I want to add some buttons as well. So I already have some buttons. So I'm going to add this button down there as the share button right here, or maybe center. It's centering. This is my design. So this is the card I have created. So first card is card elements, and drag it here for better view and put it inside a frame. Frame selection. And let's give it a name called card. And add a background color of white, and maybe that one as, so it will look like this. Now I'm going to add some, I want my image to be like this, and I want my image like these two corners to be not having border radius. So what I can do is I can go click on this and go inside this and remove this border radius from left side bottom and right side bottom. So it will look like this. It has border radius on top, but in the bottom it don't have. So I want these to align properly as well. And then let's call it a content. Always make sure to rename them with meaningful names. So this one is my image and this one is my content. So in content also, I'm going to put auto layout, and I want them to be like this. Okay, so this is my content. And add some padding. I want 30 pixels padding from both sides. So maybe I have to reduce the size of my heading to match that requirement, and also the font size should be 14, and reduce the width of the paragraph. So one thing you can do is you can drag it like this to reduce the size. There's another thing you can do in here. You can select fill container. So it will automatically change the size to match that particular element. So I have added that. Even for this one, I will add fill container. So my button will be at the bottom like this. So button size is little bit large than I expected. So let's fix that first. Let's give it 24, and this font size is also 24. And this one 24. The same this one. You can see now why only have to change the size. So we'll have to change the button sizes everywhere. So I drag this button a little bit larger, so that is why it is displaying like this. It's 191. Contents. Oh, this is our layout. This is our share button and everything is here. Okay, this is one card, and then I'm going to add some border radius to that as well. And before that, I need some space between these elements. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it some space, maybe 10 pixels in between, and reduce the one right here. Let's keep it like that. Let's add some drop shadow as well. So it will look like this. Now I want this card to be inside my design like this. And there's a slider as well. So let's talk about how to create this slider. Okay, now we have this card component. So I'm going to make it a component, create a separate card and put it right here as a backup, and then create a component. Okay, we already have button components, so let's create the slider with these cards itself. So we have 2 cards here. I need 4 cards. Okay, let's have 4 of these cards. Change the image. Alpha image. These are the slides that I have. Now I want it to be in a slider. So what I can do is I select all 4 and then put them inside a frame again. Frame selection and call it a slider. So now I place this one here. And then let's try to open the prototype. So starting point is here. Let's open the prototype. So right now you can see, even though I have 4 cards here, it is not showing up. So I can't scroll it like it is supposed to. So what I can do is, in order to first, let's remove this. Switch on if off the clip content, it will show me all the cards in that particular element. Select your card set, the slider, and then go to prototype, and then where we have option called overflow. In overflow, we have no scrolling, horizontal, vertical, both directions. So right now we need horizontal scrolling because we need to scroll it this way in x-axis. So I'm going to switch on horizontal scrolling. Now let's see how it will look like. So now you can scroll horizontally, but it is not coming, like you can't scroll all the way. So in order to avoid that, what we can do is switch off this clip content, and then in the prototype, make sure to stop it when your frame is over, right here. So now if you try to load it again, you can scroll it easily like this. So that is how you can create a scrollable content using prototyping in Figma. So that is the things that you require basically in this presentation. And even if you do animations or anything, there are plugins as well, so you can easily do them. So we will describe those in detail in next session. So is there any questions regarding the presentation or the Figma itself? You can ask anything. So I will share this one so you can see that one as well. I shared it on Zoom chat. Just join it and try to redo experience about the prototyping in Figma itself as well. Charmer, any questions?
It's good. I think I will follow the recording again. If I have any questions, I'll ask you. Thank you.
Okay, okay. How about Janet?
So did we need to do the assignment in mobile friendly or web friendly?
Yeah, it is actually for the mobile app. So I will mention that in our assignment as well. If mobile experience app, only for mobile.
Okay, okay,
Clear?
clear.
Okay. Any more questions?
Excuse
How
me,
about
sir.
Ruksha? Yeah.
So I have a small doubt on how our presentation would look like. Is it the everything you said now? Is it that's the thing, or should we do more?
Uh, 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 I want you, at least you have to do the onboarding process one, and then the sign up form if you like, but the dashboard should be there. So dashboard can be, so I haven't showed you how dashboard should look like because I want you to research yourself. So let's see. But take a look at this for an example. So it is a video. Let's take this one. Okay, here we have a sign up screen, and then this is the dashboard with the menu icons and all the cards. So you can create a slider like I mentioned here, whatever you prefer. It can be a vertical slider, it can be a horizontal slider or anything. And that screen should be there. So this is the main screen. And apart from that, I want you to create a onboarding screen or a login screen. So altogether, 3-4 screens will be enough. Clear?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So you have to back up your design decisions. What are the colors you choose? And then when I ask why did you choose this color, you have to rationalize the decision as well, the typeface and everything, and also back analysis as well. So I don't want you to create a like presentation. If you can tell it verbally when you're presenting your design by sharing your screen. That will be enough. So if you have any questions when you're doing the designs, let me know on Google Classroom. I will answer. Google Classroom or WhatsApp chat. I will answer. So we'll see you next week. Have a nice day then. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir.